The medical station floated silently in the darkness of space, orbiting a blue planet that humans had named Kepler-22b. Inside the station, thousands of beings from dozens of worlds walked through metal corridors, spoke in strange languages, and went about their daily lives. But in one small room in the healing ward, a young woman was dying. Her name was Lyra, and she was not human. Lyra belonged to a species called the Valari. Her people were tall and graceful, with skin that glowed a soft blue color, like the light of a peaceful ocean. Their eyes were silver, and when they were happy, their whole body would shine a little brighter. The Valari were one of the oldest species in the Galactic Union, and they were very proud of their history and traditions. But none of that mattered now. Lyra was 23 years old, and she had only 6 weeks to live. A rare sickness was destroying her body from the inside. The Valari healers had tried everything. They had used their most advanced medicine. They had called doctors from other planets. They had even asked the cold, logical Kreth scientists for help. But nothing worked. The sickness had no cure. Lyra lay in her bed, looking out the window at the stars. Her blue skin, which had once glowed like a summer sky, was now pale and dim. She was tired all the time. Every breath was difficult. But the thing that hurt her most was not the pain in her body, it was the fear in her heart. Among the Valari, there was an ancient belief. They believed that every person had a soul light, a small glow that lived inside their chest. This light was the essence of who they were, and when a Valari died, their soul light would leave their body and travel to the next world, where they would find peace and rest forever. But there was one condition. A Valari could only find peace if they were bonded before death. Bonding was like marriage, but deeper. It was a ceremony where two people connected their soul lights together. The bond did not require love or romance. It did not give the other person any money or property. It was simply a promise that said, "You are not alone. Someone in this universe cares that you existed." Without this bond, the Valari believed, a soul would wander the empty void between stars forever, lost, forgotten, alone. Lyra had never been bonded. She had been too focused on her studies, her work, her dreams of exploring distant galaxies. She had thought she had plenty of time. She was wrong. Her younger brother, Torin, refused to accept her fate. He was 20 years old, with the same blue skin and silver eyes as his sister, but his glow burned with anger and determination. He loved Lyra more than anyone in the universe, and he would not let her soul wander alone in the darkness. "I will find someone," he promised her every day. "I will find someone to bond with you." But finding someone was not easy. Lyra came from a noble family called the House of Falling Stars. In the old days, this would have made finding a bonding partner simple. Nobles from other houses would have been honored to help, but the old days were gone. Now, the galaxy was filled with politics and selfishness and fear. Torin sent messages to every species in the Galactic Union. He explained the situation carefully. He made it clear that the bonding was only ceremonial. The person would not have to stay with Lyra. They would not have to give anything or receive anything. They only needed to speak the vows and share a moment of connection. That was all. The responses came back quickly, and they were all the same. No. The Torvan were a species of tall, reptilian beings who valued bloodline purity above everything else. They refused immediately. "Bonding with a dying woman would contaminate our family records," their diplomat wrote. "We cannot allow such a stain on our heritage." The Kreth were a species of pale, emotionless beings who believed only in logic and science. They saw no point in the ceremony. "The ritual provides no measurable benefit," they responded. "It is illogical to participate in a meaningless tradition." The Sindari were a species of proud warriors who respected only strength. They did not even bother to respond. A dying woman was weak, and the weak were not worth their time. Species after species refused. Some were polite. Some were cruel. Some simply ignored the messages completely. But the answer was always no. Torin read every rejection with growing despair. He could not understand how so many beings could be so heartless. His sister was asking for one small kindness, one moment of compassion, and the entire galaxy was turning its back on her. One evening, he came to Lyra's room with red eyes and shaking hands. He had just received the last response. The final species on his list had refused. Lyra looked at her brother with tired but gentle eyes. She could see the pain he was carrying. She could see how hard he had fought for her. And she loved him for it. Torin, she said softly. It is enough. You have done everything you could. Trom. No, he said, his voice breaking. There must be someone. There must be one person in this entire galaxy who is not a coward or a fool. Perhaps there is, Lyra replied, but we have asked everyone. The Union has given its answer. Torin sat down beside her bed and took her hand. Her fingers were cold, and her soul light, which he could see glowing faintly in her chest, was dimmer than ever before. I cannot accept this, he whispered. Lyra smiled sadly. Then stay with me until the end. That will be enough. But it was not enough for Torin. He would not give up. He could not give up. Even if he had to search every corner of the galaxy, he would find someone willing to help his sister. The next day, a small cargo ship docked at the medical station. It was an old ship, scratched and dented from years of travel through dangerous space. The name painted on the side was The Wanderer, and it came from a planet called Earth. Humans had only been part of the Galactic Union for 40 years. They were considered the youngest species, the most primitive, the least important. Most other species looked down on them as children who had stumbled into a world they did not understand. But Torin did not care where help came from. He only cared that it came. And sometimes, help comes from the places you least expect. Park Ji-woo was not a hero. He was not a soldier, or a diplomat, or a famous explorer. He was just a man with a small ship and a simple job. Every month, Ji-woo flew his cargo ship through the outer colonies, delivering medical supplies to stations and settlements that the big companies did not care about. The pay was not great, the work was not exciting, but it was honest, and it helped people, and that was enough for him. Ji-woo was 29 years old. He had grown up in a small town in Korea, on Earth, where his grandmother had raised him after his parents died in an accident when he was young. His grandmother was a kind woman who taught him two important things: always work hard, and always be good to others, especially those who are suffering. She had died 5 years ago, and Ji-woo still missed her every day. Now he traveled alone through the stars, talking to his ship's computer when he got lonely, reading old books from Earth, and wondering if his life would ever amount to anything important. He had just finished delivering a shipment of medicine to a colony on the edge of Union space, and he had stopped at the medical station to refuel and rest. The station was busy, filled with beings from many different worlds, and Ji-woo felt small and invisible among them. Most aliens barely looked at humans. They considered Earth people to be primitive and uninteresting. Ji-woo was used to it. He did not mind being ignored. He just wanted to get some food, sleep in a real bed for one night, and continue on his way. The station had a cantina where travelers could eat and drink. It was a large room filled with tables and chairs of different sizes, designed for species with different bodies. Strange music played from speakers in the ceiling. The air smelled like 100 different foods from 100 different worlds. Ji-woo found a small table in the corner and ordered a simple meal. He ate quietly, watching the other beings around him and listening to their conversations. He did not understand most of the languages, but he liked to imagine what they were talking about. Maybe they were merchants discussing trade deals. Maybe they were scientists sharing discoveries. Maybe they were just friends catching up after a long time apart. Then he heard a voice speaking in Galactic Common. the shared language that most species used when they wanted to communicate with each other. The voice was young and angry, and it was coming from a table nearby. Jiwoo turned his head and saw a young Valari man standing in front of a seated Torvan diplomat. The Valari had blue skin and silver eyes that were burning with frustration. The Torvan was tall and reptilian, with green scales and a cold, superior expression. "Please," the Valari man was saying, "I am begging you. It is just one ceremony, one moment of kindness. She will be gone in a few weeks, and she asks for nothing else." The Torvan made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your sister's situation is unfortunate, but it is not our concern. The Torvan do not participate in the rituals of dying species. It would be beneath us." "Beneath you?" The Valari man's voice cracked. "She is a person. She is my sister. And you speak as if she is garbage." "I speak as I see," the Torvan replied coldly. "Your family has fallen far, young Valari. Once, the House of Falling Stars was respected. Now you go begging to other species like street animals. It is pathetic." The Valari man's hands curled into fists. For a moment, Jiwoo thought he might attack the Torvan. But he did not. Instead, his shoulders dropped, and his head lowered. The fight went out of him like air from a balloon. "I understand," he said quietly. "Thank you for your time." He turned and walked away, his steps slow and heavy with defeat. The Torvan watched him go with a satisfied smile, then returned to his drink as if nothing had happened. Jiwoo sat very still. He had not understood everything about the conversation. He did not know what a bonding ceremony was, or why it mattered so much. But he understood cruelty. He understood humiliation. And he understood what it looked like when someone was fighting alone for someone they loved. He thought about his grandmother. He thought about all the times she had helped neighbors who were struggling, even when she had little to give. He remembered her words. "In this world, Jiwoo, there are many people who will walk past suffering. Be the one who stops." Before he knew what he was doing, Jiwoo was standing up. His legs carried him across the cantina, following the young Valari man. He caught up with him, near the exit. "Excuse me," Jiwoo said. The Valari man turned around. His silver eyes were wet with tears he was trying to hide. When he saw Jiwoo, his expression became confused. Humans were rare in this part of space, and most aliens did not expect them to speak. "Yes?" he said. Jiwoo took a breath. "I heard what you were talking about in there, with the Torvan. I do not understand everything, but I understand that your sister needs help. And I understand that nobody is willing to help her." The Valari man studied him carefully. "That is correct. My name is Torin. My sister Lyra is dying, and she needs someone to perform a bonding ceremony with her before she goes. It is a tradition of my people. Without it, her soul will have no peace. And nobody will do it? Nobody." Torin's voice was bitter. "Every species in the Union has refused. They say it is beneath them. They say it is illogical. They say it is not their problem." Jiwoo nodded slowly. He did not fully understand the ceremony or the beliefs behind it, but he understood loneliness. He understood what it meant to face the end with no one beside you. "I will do it," he said. Torin stared at him. "What?" "The ceremony. If your sister will accept me, I will do it." For a long moment, Torin did not speak. His mouth opened and closed several times. His silver eyes searched Jiwoo's face, looking for some trick or lie. But there was none. There was only a tired cargo hauler with a kind face and a sincere heart. "You are human," Torin finally said. "Yes, humans have only been in the Union for 40 years. Your species is considered primitive. The ceremony requires someone of standing." Jiwoo shrugged. "I am standing right here." Torin let out a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "You do not understand. If you do this, the other species will mock you. They will say you are foolish. They will say you have shamed yourself by bonding with a dying alien. Let them say what they want," Jiwoo replied. I stopped caring about what others think. A long time ago. Torin was silent again. He looked at this strange human with new eyes. In all his searching, in all his begging, he had never met anyone like this. Someone who had nothing to gain and nothing to prove. Someone who simply wanted to help. Why? Torin asked. Why would you do this for someone you have never met? Jiwoo thought for a moment. Then he said, because no one should die alone. Because everyone deserves at least one person who cares. And because your sister asked the whole galaxy for a small kindness, and the whole galaxy said no. That is not right. Torin felt tears running down his face. He did not try to hide them this time. Come with me, he said. Come meet my sister. The healing ward was quiet. Most of the patients were sleeping, and the only sounds were the soft beeping of medical machines and the gentle hum of the station's life support systems. The lights in the corridor were dimmed to a soft blue, creating a peaceful atmosphere that felt very different from the busy cantina Jiwoo had just left. Torin walked ahead, his steps quick and nervous. He had not told Lyra about the human yet. He was afraid of how she might react. The Valari were a proud people, and his sister had been raised to believe in tradition and proper conduct. A human was the last thing anyone would expect for a bonding partner. But Torin was desperate, and desperation made people accept things they never thought they would. They stopped in front of a door that looked like all the other doors in the ward. Torin placed his hand on a panel, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Wait here for a moment, Torin said. Let me speak to her first. Jiwoo nodded and stayed in the corridor. Through the open door, he could see part of the room inside. It was small, but comfortable, with a window showing the stars outside. There was a bed in the center, surrounded by quiet machines. And on the bed, there was a figure that seemed to glow with a faint blue light. Torin went inside and knelt beside the bed. Jiwoo could hear their voices, but he could not make out the words. The conversation was in the Valari language, full of soft sounds and musical tones. He heard Torin's voice, urgent and hopeful. He heard a woman's voice, weak but clear, asking questions. He heard surprise. He heard doubt. He heard something that might have been laughter. Then Torin came back to the door and gestured for Jiwoo to enter. Jiwoo walked into the room slowly, feeling like he was entering a sacred space. The blue light was stronger here, coming from the woman on the bed. She was sitting up now, supported by pillows, and she was watching him with eyes that shone like polished silver. Lyra was beautiful, even in her illness. Her skin was pale blue, almost white, and her features were delicate and graceful. Her hair, which might once have been thick and flowing, was now thin and cut short. But her eyes were alive and intelligent, studying Jiwoo with a mixture of curiosity and caution. So, she said. Her voice was soft, like wind through leaves. You are the human who wants to bond with a dying woman. Jiwoo stopped a few steps from her bed. He did not know the proper way to greet a Valari noble, so he simply bowed his head respectfully. My name is Park Jiwoo, he said. I am honored to meet you. Lyra tilted her head slightly. Park Jiwoo. That is an Earth name, yes? Korean? Yes. I have read about Korea. A small country on your planet. Mountains and rivers, and people who make spicy food. Tuar. Jiwoo could not help but smile. That is mostly correct. Sit, Lyra said, gesturing to a chair beside her bed. Please. I am tired of looking up at everyone. Jiwoo sat down. Up close, he could see how thin Lyra had become. Her arms were like sticks, and her cheeks were hollow. The blue light in her chest, which Torin had called the soul light, was dim and flickering, like a candle in a strong wind. My brother tells me you volunteered, Lyra said. Without being asked. Without any reward. He says you heard him arguing with a Torvan and decided to help. That is true. Why? Jiwoo thought about the question. He had asked himself the same thing many times on the walk to the healing ward. Why was he doing this? What did he hope to gain? The answer was simple, but it felt strange to say out loud. On Earth, he said finally, we have a belief too. It is not exactly like yours, but it is similar. We believe that everyone deserves someone to be with them at the end. We believe that dying alone is one of the saddest things in the universe. Lyra listened carefully. I lost my parents when I was young, Jiwoo continued. And I lost my grandmother 5 years ago. She was the last of my family. When she died, I was holding her hand. I told her that I loved her, and she smiled. And then, she was gone. He paused, feeling the old sadness rising in his chest. I cannot give you medicine. I cannot make you healthy, but I can make sure you are not alone. I can hold your hand, if you want me to. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Her silver eyes did not leave Jiwoo's face. She seemed to be looking for something, searching for some hidden motive or secret purpose. But there was nothing to find. Jiwoo was exactly what he appeared to be. A simple man, offering a simple kindness. The Union will mock you, Lyra said. The other species will say terrible things. They will call you a fool. They will say you have lowered yourself by bonding with someone like me. I know, Jiwoo replied. Your brother told me. I do not care. Humans are considered primitive. The Valari are an ancient and proud people. Some will say this bonding is an insult to my family's honor. Do you feel insulted? Lyra blinked, surprised by the question. No, she admitted. I do not know what I feel. I have been preparing to die in darkness. I had accepted it, and now a stranger from a primitive planet walks into my room and offers to save my soul. She let out a small laugh, though it sounded more like a cough. It is very strange. Life is strange, Jiwoo agreed. They sat together in comfortable silence. Outside the window, the stars moved slowly as the station rotated. Somewhere on the station, thousands of beings were going about their lives, unaware of the small miracle happening in this little room. Finally, Lyra spoke again. The bonding ceremony is simple. We will exchange vows. We will share our soul lights. That is all. It requires no romance, no commitment, no future together. After the ceremony, you can leave and never see me again. I will not ask anything more of you. I understand, but there is something you should know. Lyra's voice became serious. The soul light exchange is supposed to be impossible between different species. The light of a Valari is not meant to connect with anyone outside our kind. And humans, she hesitated. Humans are not believed to have soul lights at all. Jiwoo frowned. What do you mean? Your species is young. Only a few thousand years of civilization. The Union scientists say that humans have not evolved enough to develop soul lights. They say you are spiritually empty. The words should have been insulting, but Jiwoo did not feel angry. He just felt sad for the scientists who believed such things. I do not know if I have a soul light, he said honestly. I have never looked for one, but I know I have feelings. I know I have love, and sadness, and hope. If that is not a soul, I do not know what is. Lyra smiled for the first time. It was a small smile, weak and tired, but it lit up her face like sunrise after a long night. I think I would like to bond with you, Park Jiwoo, she said. Torin, who had been standing silently by the door, let out a breath he had been holding for a very long time. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. Jiwoo reached out and took Lyra's cold, thin hand in his own. When do we begin? He asked. The observation dome was the most beautiful place on the station. It was a large, circular room at the very top of the structure, with walls and ceiling made entirely of transparent material. From inside, you could see the stars in every direction, spreading out forever like diamonds scattered on black velvet. The Valari had chosen this place for the bonding ceremony. They said that souls needed to see the sky when they connected, needed to feel the vastness of the universe around them. Jiwoo thought it was simply a very beautiful place to make a promise. 3 days had passed since he first met Lyra. In those 3 days, Torin had been busy arranging everything for the ceremony. He had contacted the remaining members of the House of Falling Stars, and many of them had traveled to the station to witness the event. Some came out of duty. Some came out of love for Lyra. And some, Jiwoo suspected, came out of curiosity to see the strange human who had agreed to bond with their dying noblewoman. The Valari were tall and beautiful, with their blue skin and silver eyes. They wore flowing robes of white and silver, and they moved with a grace that made Jiwoo feel clumsy and awkward. Most of them looked at him with expressions he could not read. Some seemed grateful, some seemed doubtful, and some seemed almost offended that he was there at all. But Jiwoo did not care about their opinions. He only cared about the woman beside him. Lyra had insisted on standing for the ceremony, even though her healers warned against it. She wore a traditional Valari bonding gown, a simple white dress that flowed to the floor like water. Her thin arms were bare, and the dim glow of her soul light was visible through the fabric, flickering weakly in her chest. Torin had helped Jiwoo prepare. He had given him a simple gray robe to wear, the color that guests wore at Valari ceremonies. He had taught him the words of the vows and helped him practice the pronunciation of the Valari language. He had explained every step of the ritual so that Jiwoo would not make any mistakes. "Do not be nervous," Torin had told him that morning. "The ceremony is simple. Just speak from your heart." Now, standing in the observation dome under a sky full of stars, Jiwoo felt his heart beating fast, not from fear, but from something else, something he could not name. An elder Valari stepped forward to lead the ceremony. She was very old, with skin that had faded from blue to pale gray, and eyes that had seen centuries of history. Her name was Elder Sana, and she was one of the most respected members of their people. "We gather here," Elder Sana began, her voice echoing through the dome, "to witness the bonding of two souls. In the old times, this ceremony joined families and created alliances, but its true purpose has always been simpler than politics or power. Its true purpose is to say, you are not alone." She turned to look at Jiwoo, and her ancient eyes studied him carefully. "Today, for the first time in our history, a Valari will bond with a human. Many have called this strange. Some have called it wrong. But the teachings of our ancestors say that any being with a true heart may offer the gift of connection. And I have looked into this human's heart, and I have found it to be true." Jiwoo felt something warm spread through his chest at her words. Elder Sana gestured for Lyra and Jiwoo to face each other. They did, standing close enough to touch, close enough to see every detail of each other's faces. Lyra's silver eyes were bright with unshed tears. Jiwoo's brown eyes were steady and calm. "Speak the first vow," Elder Sana instructed Lyra. Lyra took a shaky breath. When she spoke, her voice was weak but clear. "I, Lyra of the House of Falling Stars, offer my soul light to you. I do not ask for your strength or your wealth or your protection. I only ask that you see me, that you remember me, that for one moment in this vast universe, I am not alone." She reached out and placed her hand over Jiwoo's heart. Her touch was cold, but gentle. "Speak the second vow," Elder Sana instructed Jiwoo. Jiwoo had practiced the words many times, but now they felt different. Now they felt real. "I, Park Jiwoo of Earth, accept your soul light. I cannot promise you forever. I cannot promise to cure your pain or change your fate. But I promise to be here. I promise to see you. I promise to remember you. For as long as I live, you will never be forgotten." He placed his hand over Lyra's heart, where her faint blue light flickered. Elder Sana nodded solemnly. "Now," she said, "exchange your lights." This was the part that everyone was watching for, the part that was supposed to be impossible. According to every scientist and scholar in the Union, humans did not have soul lights. They were too primitive, too young, too spiritually undeveloped. The exchange would fail, and the ceremony would be incomplete, and Lyra's soul would still be left to wander alone. But Jiwoo did not think about what the scientists said. He thought about his grandmother, and how much he had loved her. He thought about his parents, and how he still missed them after all these years. He thought about every kind person he had ever met, every act of goodness he had ever witnessed, every moment when the universe had felt like more than just cold rocks and empty space. He thought about Lyra, this brave woman who had accepted her death with such grace, who had asked for nothing except to not be alone. And something happened. It started as a warmth in his chest, a feeling like the first rays of sunlight after a long winter. The warmth grew stronger and stronger, until it felt like a small fire was burning inside him. And then, to the shock of everyone in the dome, a light appeared. It was a golden light, soft and uncertain, like a candle flame just learning to burn. It glowed through Jiwoo's gray robe, shining from the center of his chest. It was small and flickering, nothing compared to the brilliant lights of the elder Valari. But it was there. It was real. The Valari witnesses gasped. Several of them stepped back in amazement. Elder Sana's ancient eyes went wide. "Impossible," someone whispered. "Humans cannot have soul lights." But the light did not care about what was possible or impossible. It reached out from Jiwoo's chest, stretching toward Lyra like a hand reaching for another hand. And Lyra's blue light, dim and weak as it was, reached back. The two lights touched, and in that moment, something beautiful happened. The golden light and the blue light wrapped around each other, dancing together like two flames becoming one. They spun and swirled in the space between Lyra and Jiwoo, creating patterns of color that no one had ever seen before. Gold and blue became green. Green became white. White became something that had no name, something that hurt to look at because it was too pure, too bright, too full of meaning. Lyra began to cry, not from sadness, but from joy. Tears ran down her pale blue cheeks, and for the first time in months, her soul light grew brighter. "You have a light," she whispered to Jiwoo. "You truly have a light." Jiwoo smiled, though he was crying too. Elder Sana found her voice again. It trembled with emotion as she spoke the final words of the ceremony. "The bond is complete. Two souls have become one light. What the universe has joined, let no force tear apart." The Valari witnesses began to kneel, one by one, showing respect not just to Lyra, but to the human who had proved them all wrong. Even those who had doubted him, even those who had looked at him with scorn, now lowered their heads in honor. Torin was crying openly, not caring who saw. His sister would not die alone. Her soul would find peace. And it was all because a simple human had decided to care. Outside the dome, the stars continued their endless dance, indifferent to the small miracle that had just occurred. But inside, everyone knew that something had changed. Not just for Lyra, not just for Jiwoo, but for the entire galaxy. Humans had soul lights. Humans had souls. And nothing would ever be the same again. Within hours of the ceremony, recordings and reports had spread to every corner of civilized space. A human with a soul light, a primitive being from a backwater planet, bonding with a noble Valari woman. The story was too strange, too shocking, too impossible to ignore. And the galaxy reacted exactly as Jiwoo had expected. With anger, fear, and denial. The first to respond were the Torvan. Their High Council released a statement within a day, calling the ceremony a fraud and an insult to the sacred traditions of the elder species. They demanded that the bonding be annulled and that the human be sent back to Earth immediately. "Primitives cannot have soul lights," the statement declared. "This is obvious to anyone with scientific understanding. What occurred on that station was a trick, a manipulation, a desperate attempt by a dying house to create scandal. The Creeth Collective was more measured, but no less dismissive. Their scientists released a long report explaining why the event was impossible. Soul lights, they argued, were the result of millions of years of evolution. They required specific genetic structures that humans simply did not possess. The light that appeared in the human's chest must have been some kind of technological device, perhaps a hologram or an implant. We recommend that the human be brought to our research facilities for examination, the report concluded. His biology is clearly anomalous and requires study. The Sindari said nothing publicly, but their silence spoke louder than words. To them, a human bonding with a noble alien was an insult to the natural order. Strength mattered, power mattered, and humans had neither. Other species reacted in different ways. Some were curious, wanting to learn more. Some were frightened, wondering what else they had been wrong about. And some were excited, seeing the event as proof that the galaxy was bigger and stranger than anyone had imagined. But for Jiwoo and Lyra, the reactions of the galaxy did not matter. What mattered was what happened next. 5 days after the ceremony, a delegation of diplomats arrived at the medical station. They represented 6 different species, all members of the Union's ruling council. They came with legal documents and scientific instruments and demands for answers, and they did not come with kindness in their hearts. The meeting was held in the station's council chamber, a large room with a circular table and seats for dozens of beings. The chamber was usually used for trade negotiations and diplomatic discussions. Today, it felt more like a courtroom. Lyra sat in a hover chair, too weak to stand for long. Her soul light was slightly brighter than before, but her body was still failing. The ceremony had given her peace, but it had not cured her illness. She had weeks left, perhaps less. Torin stood beside her, his silver eyes full of protective anger. He had fought too hard for his sister to let these diplomats take away her victory, and Jiwoo sat between them, looking small and ordinary among all the tall, impressive aliens. He wore simple clothes, and his face was calm. He did not look like someone who had just changed the history of the galaxy. The Torvan diplomat spoke first. His name was Ambassador Veth, and he was the same reptilian who had mocked Torin in the cantina days earlier. His scales were dark green, and his eyes were cold as ice. This ceremony was a violation of Union law, Veth declared. Bonding rituals are recognized only between approved species. Humans are not an approved species. Therefore, this bonding is null and void. Torin started to protest, but Lyra raised a weak hand to stop him. The law you are citing, she said, her voice thin but steady, was written before humans joined the Union. It was never meant to exclude them. It was simply never updated. An oversight that will be corrected, Veth replied. We will ensure that primitives are properly excluded from all sacred ceremonies going forward. A Creeth scientist spoke next. Her skin was pale white, and her expression was completely empty of emotion. More importantly, she said, we must address the biological impossibility of what allegedly occurred. Soul lights are genetic. They cannot simply appear in a species that lacks the necessary structures. We require the human to submit to examination, so that we may determine the true nature of what happened. I am not a laboratory animal, Jiwoo said quietly. You are an anomaly, the Creeth replied. Anomalies must be studied. He is my bonded partner, Lyra said, her voice growing stronger with anger. He is not yours to take. The other diplomats began to speak at once, arguing with each other, demanding different things. Some wanted the ceremony annulled. Some wanted Jiwoo imprisoned. Some wanted him examined. Some wanted the whole thing covered up and forgotten. They talked over each other, around each other, through each other, as if Lyra and Jiwoo were not even in the room. Finally, Jiwoo stood up. The movement was simple, but something about it made everyone fall silent. Maybe it was the look on his face. Maybe it was the way he held himself. Straight and unafraid, Or maybe it was the faint golden glow that flickered in his chest, visible even through his clothes. "May I speak?" he asked. Ambassador Veth made a dismissive gesture. "You are a human. You have no standing in this council." "Then I will speak without standing." Before anyone could stop him, Jiwoo walked to the center of the room. He looked around at all the diplomats, at all these powerful beings who had traveled across the galaxy to argue about one simple ceremony. "I understand that you are confused," he began. "I understand that what happened does not fit your rules, or your science, or your beliefs. I understand that you are afraid, because if you were wrong about humans, maybe you were wrong about other things too." He paused, making sure everyone was listening. "But I want you to understand something else. A few days ago, a woman was dying. She asked the entire galaxy for one small thing. Not power, not money, not even medicine. She just asked for someone to be with her at the end. Someone to say that her life mattered." His voice grew stronger. "And every single one of you said no. The Torvan said no because it would stain their precious records. The Kreth said no because it was illogical. The Sindari did not even bother to respond. Species after species, civilization after civilization, turned their backs on a dying woman, because helping her offered no advantage." He pointed at the diplomats, his finger steady. "You want to study me? Fine. You want to debate whether humans have souls? Go ahead. You want to pass new laws to make sure this never happens again? Be my guest. But you do not get to sit in judgment of Lyra. You do not get to pretend that what she did was wrong, when the only thing she did was ask for kindness from a galaxy that had none to give." The chamber was silent. "She asked, and I answered," Jiwoo continued. "That is all that happened. A woman needed help, and I helped her. If that is a scandal, then the scandal belongs to you, not to us." He turned to look at Lyra, and his expression softened. "I am nobody special. I am just a cargo hauler from a small planet. But I would rather be a nobody who cares than a somebody who does not." Lyra was smiling through her tears. Torin was staring at the human with something that looked very much like admiration, and the diplomats were silent, because they had no answer to give. They had expected arguments and excuses and apologies. They had not expected a simple man telling them the simple truth. Finally, Ambassador Veth spoke. His voice was quieter than before, some of its arrogance gone. "This matter will require further discussion," he said. "The council will reconvene at a later date." It was not a victory, but it was not a defeat either. As the diplomats filed out of the chamber, Jiwoo returned to his seat beside Lyra. She reached out and took his hand, her cold fingers wrapping around his warm ones. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For being exactly who you are." Jiwoo squeezed her hand gently. "Someone once told me that in this world, there are many people who walk past suffering. I am just trying to be the one who stops." Outside the windows, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the politics and arguments of the small beings below. But somewhere, in the vast darkness of space, something had shifted. A crack had appeared in the old ways of thinking. And cracks, as everyone knows, are where the light gets in. 2 weeks passed after the council meeting. The diplomats had returned to their homeworlds, still arguing about what to do. For now, the bonding stood. No one had found a way to annul it without creating even more scandal. And so Jiwoo and Lyra were left in peace, at least for a little while. But peace did not mean happiness. Lyra was getting worse. The brief brightness that had appeared in her soul light after the ceremony was fading again. The sickness inside her continued its slow, terrible work, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. The healers came every day to check on her, and every day their faces grew more sad. She had perhaps 2 weeks left, perhaps less. Jiwoo never left her side. He had moved into the medical ward, sleeping in a small bed next to hers. He read to her from Earth books that he downloaded to his tablet. He told her stories about his planet, about the oceans and mountains and strange animals. He learned to play Valari music on a small instrument that Torin had given him, even though he was terrible at it. He did everything he could to fill her remaining days with small moments of joy. And Lyra, despite her weakness, seemed happier than she had been in a long time. She smiled more. She laughed at Jiwoo's bad jokes. She asked endless questions about Earth and humans, and the strange culture that had produced this strange man. For the first time since her diagnosis, she was not just waiting to die. She was living, but something was wrong. It started slowly, so slowly that no one noticed at first. Jiwoo began to feel tired. Not the normal tiredness of long days, but a deeper exhaustion that settled into his bones. He started sleeping longer, eating less. His skin, which had always been healthy and tan, began to grow pale. The Valari healers noticed before anyone else. "Your life signs are weakening," one of them told Jiwoo during a routine examination. "Your energy levels are dropping. This is very unusual for a human your age." Jiwoo shrugged it off. "I am just tired from stress. It has been a difficult few weeks." But the healer was not convinced. She ran more tests, checking things that she had never thought to check on a human before. And what she found made her call for an emergency meeting. Torin, Lyra, and Jiwoo gathered in Lyra's room. The healer stood before them with a serious expression on her face. "I have discovered what is happening," she said. "It is something we have never seen before, because the bond between a human and a Valari has never existed before. But the evidence is clear." She turned to look at Jiwoo. "The bond is transferring life energy from you to Lyra. Your soul light is giving itself to hers, trying to keep her alive. You are dying so that she can live longer." The room went silent. Lyra's silver eyes went wide with horror. "It is true," the healer confirmed. "The bond between you is strong. Stronger than any bond I have ever seen. And because of that strength, Jiwoo's light is trying to save you. But a human soul light is small and new. It cannot sustain this transfer for long. If this continues, he will die." "Then break the bond," Lyra said immediately. "Find a way to stop it. I will not let him die for me." The healer shook her head sadly. "The bond cannot be broken. It is part of both of you now. The only way to stop the transfer would be for one of you to die." Lyra turned to Jiwoo, tears streaming down her face. "Did you know?" she demanded. "Did you know this would happen?" Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "No, I did not know. But I am not surprised." "What do you mean?" He reached out and took her hand. "You asked me why I agreed to bond with you. I told you it was because no one should die alone, but there was something else. Something I did not say because I did not have the words." He took a deep breath. "When I met you, I saw someone who had given up, not because you were weak, but because you had tried everything and failed. The whole galaxy had told you that your life did not matter, and I wanted to prove them wrong. I wanted to show you that you mattered, that your life was worth fighting for." His voice grew softer. "If my light is trying to save you, it is because I want to save you. Not just from dying alone, but from dying at all. My soul knows what my mind could not say." Lyra was crying openly now. "You fool," she said, but there was no anger in her voice. "You beautiful, stupid fool. You cannot die for me. I will not allow it. You do not get to decide that." Jiwoo replied gently. "The bond is part of us both, and I choose to give what I can give." Quote. Torin, who had been standing silently by the door, suddenly spoke up. "There must be another way," he said. "There must be something we can do. Some medicine, some technology, something." The healer hesitated. "There is one possibility. The ancient texts speak of cases where a bond became so strong that both partners merged their lights completely. Instead of one giving to the other, They became one light together. But this has not happened in thousands of years, and it was always between two Valari. We do not know if it is possible between different species. How does it work? Torin demanded. I do not know. The texts do not explain. They only say that it requires both partners to choose the merge, to give everything they have to each other at the same time. It requires perfect trust and perfect love. Jiwoo and Lyra looked at each other. They had known each other for less than a month. They were from different worlds, different species, different cultures. By all logic, they should be strangers. But something had happened between them. Something that went beyond time and reason and biology. I am willing to try, Jiwoo said. So am I, Lyra replied. But trying was not enough. The merge could not be forced. It had to happen naturally, when the time was right, when both souls were ready. And no one knew when that would be, or if it would happen at all. In the days that followed, Jiwoo grew weaker and weaker. He could no longer get out of bed. His golden soul light, which had once been bright and hopeful, was now just a tiny flicker. Lyra stayed beside him, holding his hand, watching her own light grow brighter as his grew dimmer. She had never hated anything more. Stop, she begged him. Stop giving your light to me. I do not want it. Not like this. I cannot stop, Jiwoo whispered. Torin searched desperately for a solution. He contacted human doctors on Earth, sending them all the data the Valari healers had gathered. He searched through ancient archives, looking for any record of a similar case. He barely slept, barely ate, driven by the fear of losing both his sister and the man who had become like a brother. And then, it was not in the Valari records, or the Union databases, or any scientific document. It was in a collection of human stories, old tales from Earth that had been uploaded to the Galactic Network, stories about people who loved each other so much that they chose death over separation. Stories called legends by other species, dismissed as primitive fantasies. But to humans, they were not fantasies. They were love stories, and in every single one, love found a way. Jiwoo was unconscious, his breathing shallow, his golden light barely visible. Lyra sat beside him, holding his hand, her silver eyes red from crying. She had not slept in days. She had watched the man who saved her soul slowly give away his own, and she could do nothing to stop it. I found something, Torin said breathlessly. I do not know if it will work, but we have to try. Lyra looked up at her brother. Hope and fear fought for control of her face. What is it? What is it? Torin sat down across from her and pulled out his tablet. On the screen was a page of human text, translated into Galactic Common. Human stories, he said. Not scientific papers or medical journals, just stories, tales they tell their children, and they all have something in common. He turned the tablet to show her. In human culture, there is a belief that love can overcome anything. Death, disease, even the laws of nature. Their stories are full of people who should have died but did not, because someone loved them enough to make the impossible possible. Lyra shook her head. Those are just stories. Fiction. They are not real. Maybe, Torin agreed. But the Valari also believed that humans could not have soul lights. We believed it for thousands of years, and we were wrong. What if we are wrong about this too? What if humans know something about love that we have forgotten? Lyra looked down at Jiwoo's pale face. His lips were slightly parted, and his breath came in small, quiet gasps. He looked so fragile, so human. The healer said the merge requires both partners to give everything at the same time, Torin continued. But Jiwoo has been giving from the beginning. He has never held anything back. He gave his light to you because that is who he is. That is what humans do. He leaned forward. The question is, can you do the same? Can you give everything to him, Not just your light, but your fear, your pride, your hope for survival. Can you choose him over yourself, the way he chose you? Lyra's hands were shaking. I do not want to take his life. You would not be taking it. You would be sharing it. The merge does not mean one soul consuming another. It means two souls becoming one. Neither dies. Both transform. But no one has done this in thousands of years, and never between different species. Torin smiled sadly. Then you will be the first. You have already broken every rule. Why stop now? Lyra was silent for a long moment. She looked at Jiwoo. At this strange man, from a strange world, who had walked into her life and changed everything. He had asked for nothing. He had expected nothing. He had simply shown up because no one else would. And she realized, with a clarity that took her breath away, that she loved him. Not the love of tradition or duty or gratitude. Real love. The kind of love that the human stories talked about. The kind that made impossible things possible. She had been so afraid of dying that she had forgotten how to live. But, Jiwoo had reminded her, in his small acts of kindness, his bad jokes, his terrible music, his constant presence by her side, he had shown her that life was not measured in years or achievements. It was measured in moments, in connections, in the simple miracle of someone choosing to care, and now it was her turn to choose. Lyra gently lifted Jiwoo's hand and placed it over her heart. Then, she placed her own hand over his heart, where his fading golden light still flickered. I need you to leave, she said to Torin. Lyra, please, this has to be just us. Torin hesitated, then nodded. He stood up, walked to the door, and looked back one last time at his sister. I love you, he said. I love you too. Now go. The door closed behind him, and Lyra was alone with Jiwoo. She leaned close to his ear and began to speak. Jiwoo, I do not know if you can hear me, but I need to tell you something. I need to tell you before it is too late. Her voice was soft, barely a whisper. When I asked the galaxy for help, I had given up hope. I thought I would die alone, forgotten, my soul lost in the darkness forever. And then you came. A human, a stranger, a nobody from a nobody planet. And you changed everything. Tears ran down her face. You gave me your light without asking for anything in return. You defended me against the whole galaxy. You stayed with me when everyone else would have left. And I was so busy being grateful that I did not see the truth. She pressed her forehead against his. I love you, Park Jiwoo. I love you not because you saved me, but because of who you are. Because you are kind and brave and stubborn and good. Because you make terrible jokes and play terrible music and never give up, even when you should. Her soul light began to glow brighter. You gave me everything. Now I am giving you everything back. Not because I owe you. Not because it is fair. But because I choose you. I choose us. Whatever happens next, we face it together. She closed her eyes and let go. Let go of her fear. Let go of her pride. Let go of her desperate grip on life. She gave it all to the bond, to the connection between them, trusting that love would find a way. And something answered. Deep inside Jiwoo's chest, his golden light stirred. It had been fading for days, growing dimmer and dimmer as it poured itself into Lyra. But now it felt something new. It felt her giving back, not just her light, but her heart, her soul, her everything. The golden light reached for the blue light. The blue light reached for the golden light, and they merged. It was not a violent thing, not an explosion or a flash. It was gentle, like two rivers flowing together to become one. Gold and blue swirled around each other, mixing and blending, becoming something entirely new. The merged light was white, not the cold white of stars or the harsh white of artificial lamps. It was a warm white, soft and alive, like sunlight through clouds on a peaceful afternoon. It filled both their chests. It connected them in ways that went beyond physical touch. They could feel each other's heartbeats, each other's thoughts, each other's hopes and fears, and dreams. And then the miracle happened. Lyra's sickness, the incurable disease that had been killing her for months, began to fade. The merged light was stronger than either individual light had been. It flooded through her body, repairing damage, restoring strength, pushing back the darkness that had been consuming her. At the same time, Ji-woo's weakness disappeared. Color returned to his cheeks. His breathing grew strong and steady. His eyes, which had been closed for days, opened. He saw Lyra's face above him, tears streaming down her cheeks, a smile of disbelief on her lips. "Did it work?" he asked weakly. "Look," she whispered. He looked down at his chest. The white light glowed there, bright and steady, matching the identical light in Lyra's chest. They were the same now, two halves of one whole. "We are alive," Lyra said, laughing and crying at the same time. "We are both alive." Ji-woo reached up and touched her face. "You saved me. We saved each other." The door burst open, and Torin rushed in, followed by the healers. They stopped short when they saw the two figures sitting up in bed, holding each other, glowing with a light that no one in the galaxy had ever seen before. The healers ran their scans, checked their readings, compared their data. What they found was impossible. Lyra's disease was gone, completely gone, as if it had never existed, and both she and Ji-woo were stronger than they had ever been, their merged soul light sustaining them in ways that science could not explain. "This should not be possible," one healer said, staring at her tablet. "Maybe not," Ji-woo replied, still holding Lyra's hand. "But it happened anyway," Ji-woo replied. "Maybe not." In the weeks and months that followed, word of the miracles spread throughout the galaxy. Scientists came to study them. Diplomats came to question them. Religious leaders came to debate the meaning of what had occurred. The Valari called the merged light the first bridge, a sign that different species could connect in ways they had never imagined. They revised their ancient beliefs, opening their ceremonies to beings from any world. The humans called it something simpler. They called it marriage. Real marriage. The kind where two people become one, not through ritual or law, but through choice and love. And slowly, the galactic union began to change. Other species started to look at humans differently, not as primitives or children or curiosities, but as beings who understood something fundamental about the universe, something about connection, about sacrifice, about the power of simply caring for another person. Humanity was formally recognized by the Union Council, not for their technology or their military strength, but for something much more valuable: their hearts. Years later, Ji-woo and Lyra ran a small medical transport together, delivering supplies to forgotten stations and helping those that others overlooked. They were not famous or wealthy or powerful. They were just two people from two different worlds who had found each other in the darkness and decided to shine together. When asked about his famous act of kindness, about the ceremony that changed the galaxy, Ji-woo always gave the same answer: "I did not do anything special. I just showed up. I saw someone who needed help, and I helped. Anyone could have done the same." But that was the miracle, really. That was the thing the galaxy had forgotten. Anyone could have done the same. They just had to choose to. And sometimes, in a vast and indifferent universe, that choice is the most powerful thing of all.